And we begin tonight at 9 with our team coverage on that decision that's now just a governor's signature away from becoming law. That could happen as soon as tomorrow. Iowa's News Now State House reporter Skylar Talaw has been tracking the bill since it was introduced. She kicks off our team coverage with a look at the back and forth between lawmakers tonight.
Republicans in both chambers have officially passed the bill stripping gender identity from Iowa's Civil Rights Act. And it was clearly a major priority for Republicans as they fast-tracked the legislation, originally introducing it last Thursday, quickly moving it through the legislative process, and then sending it to Governor Reynolds all within 1 week.
Over a dozen Democrats speaking on the House floor, some even tearing up in disbelief that Republicans are choosing to make Iowa the first state to take away a protected class. Calling the bill hateful, some Dems pled with the GOP to switch their votes at the last minute, arguing the proposal moves Iowa backwards instead of forward. And we heard very emotional testimony from the first and only transgender lawmaker in Iowa, getting a standing ovation from the House gallery.
Draw the line in the sand and say that civil rights in Iowa are enshrined and protected.
The bill has passed both the House and the Senate, so it heads over to Governor Kim Reynolds' desk, and we expect that she's going to sign it. But this is a major move because this is the first time in American history that a state has voted to remove protections from any protected class. That's never happened before, Vlad, so it sets the stage for the fights that we're going to see ahead.
Boy, 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 boy. So we got to talk about what appears to be another insurrection, at least based off the definition of an insurrection that Democrats gave us after January 6th, which is that any group of people that force their way into a Capitol, they are committing an act of insurrection, okay? If they don't like what the government is doing and then you try to go into the Capitol and voice your displeasure with what the government is doing, that is an insurrection, okay? And it seems as if that is what happened in Iowa at the state capitol, as you had woke activists invade the Capitol screaming F fascists over the GOP essentially moving to revoke gender identity as a protected class. Yeah. So, again, they're upset, okay, because the Iowa lawmakers are saying, hey, listen, we're not going to allow gender identity to be a protected class anymore, okay? And you have the liberal media and the woke activists framing this as, well, they're rolling back our civil rights, right? They're taking away our rights, okay? Taking away our rights. Except that's actually not the case. First and foremost, sex is still a protected class in Iowa, okay? The whole gender identity thing was essentially a loophole to be able to make legal arguments against Republicans when they decide that, hey, you know what? Biological boys can't compete against biological girls in sports. The woke activists would say, no, that's actually gender discrimination, okay? That's gender identity discrimination. And they were using that to fight against some of the policies that the Republicans were implementing in the courts, right? So Republicans decided, hey, you know what? We're just going to get rid of the whole gender identity protection thing, right? Protected class thing. That way, there are no more special rights and privileges, okay? So, again, that's what's happening here. That was being used as a legal argument to essentially fight for the special rights and privileges that a lot of these individuals want, okay? Republicans basically took that away, and that's why they're upset. And keep in mind that there are 27 other states that don't have any gender identity protections, right? In the sense that gender identity is not a protected class. So again, this is not like 50 states having this and then Iowa ends up taking it away. No, Iowa was just one of a minority of states that had it, and then they're like, nah, we're good. We want to get rid of it. Which again, there are a bunch of other states that did not have this as well too. Okay, so again, they're not losing any rights, right? They might be losing some special rights, but no rights that anybody else doesn't have, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video.
Patients here today, right outside this room, screaming at the top of their lungs as if their life depends upon it, because it does.
We begin tonight here in the state capitol as legislators vote on a bill that would strip the state civil rights code of protections based on gender identity. Protesters gathered inside the rotunda opposing the bill, which could soon be signed into law. It is a huge day at the Capitol as the bill races through the legislative process. After being introduced just last week, both chambers put this bill on the debate calendar today. Opponents argue the bill would discriminate against transgender Iowans. Local 5's Connor O'Neill is live at the state capitol tonight with the latest.
Yeah, Stephanie, well, the House and the Senate both just finished up debate and both passed the bill within the past hour in their respective chambers. 5 House Republicans joined the Democrats against the bill, while in the Senate, all Republicans voted for it. It's obviously a bill that draws in a lot of attention and a lot of people. I've never seen the amount of people show up at the Iowa State Capitol like there was today on all sides of the building. They're trying to get in here for debate inside the chambers and also for this morning's House public hearing. Most of this week, people have flooded the halls of the Iowa State Capitol to protest an identical bill on the House and Senate that opponents say could expose transgender people to discrimination in employment, housing, and education. During a public hearing Thursday morning, opponents argued this bill is not about protecting women, it's about taking away rights and protections from transgender Iowans.
Separate but equal is not inherently anything other than unequal. And to say that it is not is to ignore the teachings of our civil rights leaders of the past.
Those in favor. You know what I find to be hilarious about this? How these individuals always want to piggyback off of what other so-called minority groups have done when it comes to civil rights. Like, for example, don't you guys find it funny how even the so-called pro-blackly blacks, right, like Jasmine Crotchet, when they try to defend the far-left woke agenda, they always compare it to the plight of black people, as if black people and transgender people are in the same boat.
Let me tell you something. Y'all need to find some people that actually care about their constituents. And honestly, whenever y'all are ready to work, we on this side of the aisle have always been ready to do what is right by the American people. Instead, what you can continue to do is go after the most vulnerable in our country. The fact that you just sat up there and somehow figured out how to tie trans folk to your argument makes no sense to me. But let me tell you something. Trans people ain't going nowhere. Just like when the racists wanted to make sure that black people somehow were going to be dismissed in this country. We ain't left either. And I'll yield.
Would you yield back?
I'll yield.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Okay, according to the pro-blackly blacks, the Democrats, black people and trans people are in the same boat. Okay, black people and trans people have the same plight. This is according to the Democrats.
Added that the legislation adds common sense protections for women and children from transgender boys and men in bathrooms and locker rooms, and it does not discriminate against a group of people.
It's not rocket science, it's not deeply nuanced. It's 1 + 1 = 2 legislation. Don't go AWOL when those who elected you to office need you.
Hours later, intense debate, Senator Johnson, a Democrat, asked Senator Schultz, a Republican, if he believes it's morally right to deny someone a credit card because they are transgender, and Schultz responded.
You are putting words in my mouth, as you are wont to do. We have had this more times. You tried to trap me with a Ronald Reagan quote that I wouldn't play with. I resist anybody discriminating against anybody, assaulting anybody, doing anything wrong against anybody. But this bill addresses protecting women and children.
Democrats say the Republicans' argument that some people have special rights over everyone else is not true. Instead, they claim the Civil Rights Act already guarantees equal rights.
And so when you sit here and tell us that you're trying to protect women and trying to protect women, what does this do to protect those folks? What we're doing is shutting off credit to people.
The bill literally...
Yeah, so Kim Reynolds signed this bill. I'm not entirely sure how removing gender identity as a protected status results in trans people not being able to get access to credit. I'm not entirely sure how is it when you apply for a credit card that the company is going to know that you're trans, right? I don't understand, right? When I apply for a credit card, which I haven't done in a long time, maybe they've updated it to be able to include that. But any company that's going to update it to be able to include being able to identify yourself as trans, I think is probably going to be okay with doing business with trans people. I don't know. I don't get it. But, I tried to do some research on it, and I came across this interesting testimonial here on R-Trans, right, on Reddit. okay, about alleged discrimination, okay? And then I read about the alleged discrimination, and then I came to the conclusion that I think I come to most of the time when I read about the alleged discrimination is that a lot of these people are just making stuff up, right? So let's read about some of the alleged discrimination that happens against trans people. I will give some context first. I am MTFAMAB. I don't know what that is, okay? That could be some gender category that I have not learned about yet. Don't know, but this is what this person says. And I completed my transition about 6 years ago. My Achilles heel is my voice. I have tried every possible method to help feminize the voice many times. Unfortunately, I never succeeded. So my voice still sounds very masculine. I am called sir on the phone 100% of the time. Soon after Trump's inauguration, I had called my credit card company to ask a question. More context. The headquarters for this bank is in a very deep red state. I never had any issues calling customer service for this particular credit card. So I noticed my account is frozen because I was trying to make a purchase and it kept being declined. So I called customer service. The person on the phone was extremely rude to me and transferred me to a different person who said my account was permanently closed because I am high risk. I called again trying to speak with the supervisor. This time on the phone, the supervisor said that upper management decided that I am high risk and permanently froze my credit card. So here is the problem. It was very difficult to read between the lines. I have called my credit card's bank with my female name and a very masculine voice with no issue before Trump was inaugurated. After his inauguration, I am suddenly a high risk because I am clearly trans based on the mismatch of my very feminine name with a very deep masculine voice. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. My message to you all is if you are in my same situation with the mismatch of your name and my voice, to not call your bank's customer service. Use any other method like email or text. If you do not, you might end up in my situation. I stand with all my trans people. Yeah. So this person did not name the bank. Okay, they refused to name the bank, and that is why the post is locked, because it's BS, right? I mean, that's essentially why it's locked. Now, let's say the story is true, which, hey, I don't have any real reason to believe it's true, because if it was true and there was real discrimination here, then, hey, this person would name the bank, right? Name the bank, okay? So you can go get your money, okay? But this person's not naming the bank because it's probably not true. But even if this did happen, right? Like, I mean, there are plenty of reasons for why a credit card company could say, hey, I don't want to do business with you anymore. Right? Without knowing the context of, okay, did you have an outstanding balance? What is your credit situation like? What is your payment history? Right? We don't know any of those things. All we know is that this person says, well, I have a feminine sounding name and a deep voice. Therefore, the bank knows I'm trans. Right? They discriminate against me. And this all happened after Trump. Trying to basically say it's Trump's fault. Right? That Trump has emboldened the credit card company or the bank to basically discriminate against trans people. Which, I mean, certainly is not the case, okay? But again, this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who literally believe that anything that happens in their life that is somewhat adversarial, right, when they're not getting their way, it's a form of discrimination and hate, and that's just simply not the case. Again, you have plenty of states that don't have the gender identity protected class protection. In fact, I actually believe that Supreme Court has categorized gender discrimination under sex discrimination. So you're still protected at the federal level when it comes to employment discrimination. But again, these facts don't really matter, right? You just got people that are going to say, hey, we're victims no matter what, right? And we're fighting for our rights, okay? Even though there are really no rights being taken away. The only things that are changing is the fact that, hey, you don't get special rights and you don't get special privileges anymore. You have to be equal. You have to be equal to everybody else. But these people, once again, are showing us that, hey, they don't want equal rights, right? That's not what they want at all, okay? Because if you wanted equal rights, then, hey, you would say, okay, well, this is not that big of a deal. There's still protections against sex discrimination. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. But because, again, the goal is special rights, special privileges that other people don't have, this is why they're upset. So Iowa's saying no more to that, and you can see the outrage as a result. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.